Protoss doesn't really need new units in Heart of the Swarm. But even the mighty Protoss suffers from some issues, and we try to hope to solve these issues through new units. So the first problem that Protoss have in Wings of Liberty is they don't really have a solid, constant raiding option throughout the whole game, especially in the early mid-game. So one thing about the raiding units that we wanted to avoid was pretty much every single raiding unit in Wings of Liberty focuses around how fast you kill workers, how effectively you kill workers. So for this new caster unit, we wanted to make sure that we don't really focus on killing units. At the same time, we wanted this caster to be viable throughout the course of the whole game and a very powerful option throughout the whole game as well. Protoss also suffers a little bit from the lack of AoE anti-air, especially in the late game. So I'm sure all those Protoss players out there have experience fighting against Zerg, who build, say, like 40 or 50 or even more Mutalisks in the late game, and you really don't know what to build because you don't really have anything against that. The Phoenix are good against small groups of Mutalisks, but if the scale gets that big, there's really not much you can do. So just like the Terrans, Protoss does not suffer from not having options in terms of having that all-round 200 pop supply army. So our direction when creating these new units was, while we could replace some of those units in that ball of death, we didn't really want to increase the effectiveness of that huge stack of army.
All right, I'm going to talk about a new Protoss unit called the Tempest. The Tempest is a new capital ship for the Protoss players. It's a big guy, requires fleet beacon. This does mean, at least for the moment, that the carrier is out. The Tempest is going to take his place. Let's have a moment of silence for the carrier. All right, it's over. All right. He is a very powerful AoE anti-air unit as a flyer, so he's something that can defend your base from mass Mutalisks. And he also can fire against ground units, so he's a decent air assault unit as well. It gives the Protoss a really powerful reason and way to deal with that end-of-game Mutalisk scenario that David was talking about. So I'm going to show you a video here, and before I do, I just want to make it clear that sometimes when we balance these things early on, the counters might seem a little sharp. This is probably a little sharp for where it will ultimately end up. That looked perfect. Nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to David to explain the Replicant.
So the Replicant is a new unit after the robotics facility. It's got no attack, and its only one ability allows it to transform into any unit that you have vision of in that game. So you can copy units such as siege tanks or ghosts, stuff like that. But there's a huge downside to this unit, which is the high cost of the unit. It costs 200 minerals, 200 gas, and 4 pop right now, which means if you copy a Templar, then that means you're spending double the cost of the Templar to copy it. But the upside to this is you actually get all the upgrades enabled when you copy a unit. So for example, if you copy a Banshee that doesn't have Cloak enabled, you can actually use the Banshee with Cloak. So we're hoping that because you can copy so many units and bring so many different units to the Protoss army, that this will create a lot of new strategy. Again, this is under construction, and in our playtests, we found that the strength of, say, like a siege tank is different when used, but in combination with Marines versus when used with a bunch of Zealots, Stalkers, especially force fields on sentries. So we're having slight difficulties in really gauging the strength of this unit, so any feedback would definitely be welcome. So in this video, you'll see a bunch of replicants going in, copying the siege tanks, and all the Marines are killed by the splash damage of the siege tanks. So obviously, this isn't the only use of the replicant. So all those times as the Protoss player, when you felt like those ghosts were a little too strong or those infestors were too strong, you now have an option to copy those units and use it against your opponents.
All right, I'm going to talk about a new Protoss flyer called the Oracle. So the Oracle is a new raiding caster for the Protoss. He's very worker-friendly. No workers will ever be harmed by an Oracle. There are 55 ways to lose workers in StarCraft 2, but thankfully the Oracle will not be one of them. And he doesn't get added to the ball of death. He's not something that we're trying to design to fly over your army and cast a bunch of great spells that you have to use with your army. He's something to be meant to be used alone, by himself, circling around the enemy base, doing all the damage he can possibly do. And the mothership is going to be cut to make room for the mighty Oracle. So the moment of silence for the mothership. Poor mothership. Alright, so let's show how this guy works. He's got a couple of abilities he's going to use in this video. One is the ability to temporarily stun buildings. The more important ability is this Entomb ability, which allows him to lock out those minerals. Those minerals cannot be harvested from until those force fields time out or are destroyed by enemy fire. Now, if there was a force that came in here and attacked those force fields, it could quickly wipe it out and you'd be right back to harvesting, right back to where you were. But if you were to put this over all of those minerals, and there would be no force that would come in to wipe out those force fields, you could lose right now in the balance as much as 500 minerals from this action. But your workers are still good to go. You're not out of the game, you're not done, but your economy most definitely has been raided. So this is where we're at today with the Protoss. The Tempest is coming in to give us some powerful area effect anti-air capabilities. The Replicant is this new wacky technology thief that you can use to copy enemy units. You can have Protoss Ghosts, Protoss Infestors, Protoss Siege Tanks, and we got the Oracle, this powerful Protoss flying raider that you can use in the mid-game to really try to trap the enemy's base by repeatedly raiding his economy again and again and again. All right, you guys ready for the lightning round?